Have you had time to just take in all your accomplishments?
I really didn't, I'd admit, when I was younger, for sure. But it honestly wasn't until, I think maybe the past year or two that I finally just sat there and went like, wow, like, done some things, you know, I've been through it. And, you know, I never really watched too many of my competition runs, but every now and then I'll like pull up the last Olympics, and it was just such a heavy competition, the heaviest I think for me in my career, just because I'd been badly injured just before the event. And in order to win that competition, like, man, I had to do the same trick that put me in the hospital maybe a couple months ago. And, you know, I had like ripped my face open, and I'm in New Zealand, I kept getting stitches and helicoptered to the hospital. It was really bad. And so that's kind of in the back of my mind. And now I'm at the Olympics, I got one run to go. I'm sitting there at the top like, all right, it's now or never.
Wow.
But the thing that hit me the hardest was I was at my first Olympics, and I didn't really understand how big the Olympics was. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's the biggest event there is. Like, oh, I'd love to win that. You know what I mean? That's all I thought. Like, I didn't know you're like fully like representing, you know, your country as well as other things. You know what I mean? It's just like this big moment in history. And thank goodness I didn't, because I would have been terrified. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I just gotta win this thing. But I'll never forget, like, I slid down to the bottom of the half pipe, and my whole, you know, they got my whole family there, and everyone's crying. And like my dad's crying, you know, like dad tears are just like a little extra level above. You're like, oh, catching me up. Like, I'm gonna cry, you know what I mean? And then my mom leaned in and she's like, you just won the Olympics. Like, you'll never ever be Shaun White again. You're forever Shaun White, the Olympic gold medalist. Like, that's your title. And I was just like, okay, it's sinking in. Like, you know what I mean? Now I'm crying, everybody's freaking, you know, and I just like, I knew my life had kind of changed after that, because I arrived at the airport, and the whole place, somebody screamed my name, and I just like turned, and the whole place just started to like clap, like out of a movie, you know? Everybody's clapping and screaming, and I you know, like, what do? I was just like, you know, like, yeah. Like, but I was like, wow, okay, things are gonna get, you know, my life's gonna get crazy. And from that moment on, I kind of realized the you know, level of success I had achieved in a sport, and what it all had meant. And then I was operating kind of on a different level of how do you maintain, and that's like a whole nother thing. It's like, it's you can finally climb that mountain and get to the top, and then it's like, well, what do you do now? And I think that's one of the most exciting things about sport, is it's just kind of like, it's something that's happening like real time in this moment, and there's only, you know, there's no going back. It's like, this is happening today, this moment, and it's just such a wild experience to be in those pressure situations. And you know, like the Olympics, it boils down to a day, a couple hours. It's a couple hours. Wow. It's like, all right, cool, from 2 to 5 is gonna decide your next 4 years. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so you're like, all right, well, I hope this goes well, you know, I don't, like, I remember.
I hope it works out.
Yeah, totally. And like, looking back, it's like those moments, like, I'll never forget how exciting and thrilling and how it was all on the line, and you pull through in the end, so.